John Miller was a man who understood the rules of life. For 40 years he had taught English in a quiet town in North Carolina. He believed in the power of a well-placed comma. He championed the clarity of a perfectly structured sentence. English, to John, was a language of precision and order. It was a world he could control. But when he lost his beloved wife Eleanor, the rules no longer made sense. The language that had been his lifelong companion offered no words to fill the vast, silent space she left behind. Grief, he discovered, had no grammar. It was a messy, run-on sentence of sorrow that he couldn't edit or revise. The silence in his home became deafening. Each empty chair and dusty book reminded him of a conversation he could no longer have. John felt himself shrinking, becoming a ghost in his own life story. He had spent his career connecting with students through literature and language. Yet now he felt profoundly disconnected from everyone, including himself. The English he knew, the formal, proper English of textbooks, felt cold and inadequate. It was a tool for communication, yes, but it couldn't bridge the chasm of his loneliness. He yearned for something more. He yearned for a connection that went deeper than just words. One cold November evening, scrolling through travel blogs, he stumbled upon an article about the Philippines. It described a nation of 7,600 islands and 100 million smiles. What caught his eye was a phrase, the friendliest English-speaking country in Asia. An idea, fragile at first, began to form in his mind. He wasn't looking for an escape. He was looking for a new kind of conversation. He booked a one-way ticket, not knowing what he would find. He just knew he couldn't stay where he was, lost in the quiet wreckage of his old life. He was searching for a language that could speak to his heart. As his plane descended toward Manila, a wave of apprehension washed over him. What was he, a 70-year-old widower, doing here? He was a man of structure and routine, now plunging into a world of vibrant, beautiful chaos. He felt small and out of place, clutching his bag of neatly packed grammar books and novels. He worried his standard American English would sound harsh or demanding. He had come seeking connection, but he feared his own language, the only tool he had, would build a wall instead of a bridge. He was about to learn that language isn't just about what you say, but how you say it, and more importantly, the heart you say it with. John's first few hours in Manila were a whirlwind of new sights, sounds, and smells. The humidity clung to his shirt, and the symphony of jeepney horns and bustling crowds was overwhelming. He felt a familiar loneliness creeping in. Standing on a busy street corner, fumbling with a map, he must have looked completely lost. A young woman pushing a cart of fresh mangoes noticed his distress. She stopped, her face breaking into a warm, genuine smile. "Sir, are you needing some help?" she asked. Her English was accented, her phrasing a little different, but her tone was filled with a kindness so pure it caught him completely off guard. He explained he was trying to find his hotel, his voice trembling slightly. The woman, whose name was Lena, didn't just point him in the right direction. She left her cart with a neighboring vendor and insisted on walking him the 2 blocks to his hotel lobby. Along the way, she asked him about his journey, where he was from, and if he had eaten yet. "You must be very hungry, Sir John," she said, adding his name as if they were old friends. This small act of familiarity, of being seen not as a tourist but as a person, was the first crack in the armor he had built around his heart. For the first time in months, he didn't feel invisible. In the hotel lobby, she wished him a wonderful stay. As she turned to leave, John, moved by her generosity, tried to offer her some money. Lena gently pushed his hand away, shaking her head. "No, sir," she said, her smile unwavering. "It is my pleasure to welcome you." In that moment, John wasn't a retired teacher from North Carolina, and she wasn't a street vendor. They were just 2 human beings sharing a moment of connection. The transaction wasn't financial, it was emotional. Her English, interwoven with a culture of hospitality, had delivered a message his own language rarely could. "You are welcome here. You are safe. You matter." That night, alone in his hotel room, John replayed the encounter in his mind. The words, "Are you needing some help?" echoed in his thoughts. Grammatically, his teacher's brain noted the continuous tense was unconventional, but the feeling behind them was perfect. It was an offer, not an intrusion. It was gentle, not demanding. He realized that the English he had heard on that street corner was not a lesser version of his own. It was a different version, one that was richer in some ways. It was infused with warmth, empathy, and an immediate sense of community. He had come to the Philippines seeking language and had found humanity instead. As John traveled from the bustling streets of Cebu to the serene beaches of Palawan, he began to understand the unique melody of Filipino English. It was a language that had been shaped not just by American colonialism, but by the deep-seated cultural values of the islands. He noticed the frequent use of sir and ma'am, not as a sign of stiff formality, but as a genuine expression of respect for elders and visitors. A security guard at a mall would greet him with, "Good morning, sir, welcome." A young barista would ask, "What can I get for you, sir?" This simple honorific made him feel seen and valued in a way he hadn't experienced back home. He also discovered the beautiful inclusivity of Filipino English. People would often use "we" when referring to his plans, even if they weren't part of them. A tricycle driver, after dropping him at a restaurant, might say, "Okay, sir, we will eat here." It wasn't a grammatical error, it was a verbal embrace. This collective pronoun created an instant sense of shared experience, making him feel like part of the group, not an outsider looking in. It was a subtle linguistic habit that chipped away at his isolation, reminding him that he was not alone on his journey. It was a language that automatically included you in the circle. Another feature that touched John deeply was the use of endearing modifiers. When asking for something, people would often add po or opo to show respect, a carryover from Tagalog. In English, this sentiment was often translated into a gentle, softened tone. He also heard phrases like, "for a while," used in place of "please." A vendor might say, "Can I see your ticket for a while?" This wasn't about a literal duration of time. It was a polite and humble way of making a request, minimizing any sense of imposition. It was as if the language itself was designed to be considerate of the other person's feelings. Perhaps most powerful of all was the direct expression of care. Strangers would ask him, "Have you eaten already?" This wasn't just small talk. It was a fundamental way of showing concern, rooted in a culture where ensuring someone is fed is a primary act of love. He would be told to take care with a sincerity that felt like a blessing. These were not just phrases, they were extensions of a communal spirit. John, the English purist, began to see that Filipino English wasn't simply a dialect. It was a philosophy. It was English that had been remolded to carry the weight of empathy, respect, and heartfelt human connection. John's transformation happened in a series of small, unforgettable moments. One afternoon, he was sitting in a small cafe, just journaling about his experiences. The young woman who brought him his coffee, a university student named Maria, noticed the book he was reading. "Oh, Hemingway!" she exclaimed with delight. "I love his words, sir. So simple, but so much meaning inside." They began to talk, not as a customer and a server, but as two people who shared a love for stories. She spoke of her dreams of becoming a writer, her English passionate and articulate. Her hope was so bright and infectious, it rekindled a spark in John he thought had long died out. Another day, he found himself caught in a sudden tropical downpour while walking through a small village. He took shelter under the awning of a tiny sari-sari store. The elderly woman inside, Lola Nena, beckoned him in with a wave of her hand. She offered him a small wooden stool and a steaming cup of instant coffee. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, listening to the rhythm of the rain. Then she began to speak in a mix of Tagalog and gentle broken English, telling him stories of her grandchildren. John didn't understand every word, but he understood her pride, her love, her joy. It was a conversation that transcended vocabulary. He also remembered a conversation with a fisherman named Rico on the island of Bohol. John had asked him about the challenges of his work. Rico, with his sun-weathered face and calloused hands, looked out at the ocean. "Sometimes the sea is giving, sir. Sometimes she is angry," he said, "but we must always respect her. We are only visitors." This simple, profound statement struck John to his core. Rico's English was not complex, but his wisdom was immense. He was talking about fishing, but he was also talking about life, about humility, and about accepting things beyond our control. It was a lesson John desperately needed to learn. These interactions were like tiny lanterns, each one illuminating a different corner of his grieving heart. He learned about resilience from a taxi driver stuck in traffic, about faith from a woman selling candles outside a church, and about pure joy from children playing basketball with a makeshift hoop. They weren't trying to impress him with their English. They were simply sharing their lives with him. They were using the language they had to build a bridge to his world. John realized that for his entire life, he had been focused on the architecture of the bridge, the grammar, the syntax. Here, in the Philippines, he was finally learning to walk across it. The John Miller who returned to North Carolina 6 months later was not the same man who had left. The change was not just in his sun-kissed skin, but in the light that had returned to his eyes. He unpacked his bags, but this time, he didn't reach for his old grammar books. Instead, he sat down at his computer and began to write. He wrote about Lena and her mangoes, about Maria and her dreams, about Lola Nena and her coffee, and about Rico and the sea. He wrote about a language that was not defined by its adherence to the Queen's English or American standards, but by its capacity for kindness. His fundamental belief system about language had been turned upside down. For 40 years, he had corrected misplaced modifiers and dangling participles. He had believed that clear communication depended on grammatical precision. But his time in the Philippines taught him a deeper truth. Communication is not just the transmission of information, it is the creation of connection. The Filipinos he met were master communicators, not because their English was perfect, but because their intention was pure. They used language as a tool to make others feel welcome, respected, and cared for. Their English had a soul. John realized that he had been a gatekeeper of English, standing guard over its rules. But language is not a fortress to be defended. It is a river that flows and changes, picking up the colors and textures of the lands it passes through. Filipino English, with its unique cadence and its infusion of cultural warmth, was a beautiful, powerful tributary of that river. It wasn't wrong or broken. It was alive. It was a testament to the adaptability and resilience of both the language and the people who spoke it. He felt a sense of shame for his past rigidity, but it was quickly replaced by a profound sense of gratitude. In his essay, which he titled "Listening with My Heart," John argued that we have become too obsessed with correctness. We listen for mistakes instead of meaning. We judge accents instead of admiring the courage it takes to speak a second language. He wrote, "My Filipino friends did not just speak English to me, they spoke humanity to me." He urged his readers, especially his fellow educators, to shift their focus from teaching a perfect English to fostering a compassionate English. The true measure of language proficiency, he now believed, was not in a flawless accent, but in the ability to make another person feel understood. John initially shared his essay on a small blog for retired teachers. He thought perhaps a few old colleagues might find it interesting. He had no idea what was about to happen. Within days, the story was shared on social media. It was picked up by news outlets, translated into different languages, and read by millions of people around the world. The story of a grieving American teacher finding healing through the kindness of Filipino English struck a universal chord. It was a message of hope and connection in a world that often feels divided and disconnected. The response was overwhelming. Teachers from Japan to Brazil wrote to him saying his essay had inspired them to be more patient and empathetic with their students. They were shifting their focus from error correction to building confidence. Learners of English, who had long felt insecure about their accents or grammatical mistakes, sent him messages of thanks. They said his story made them feel seen and validated. One woman from Poland wrote, "Thank you for telling us that our English is not broken, it is just our own." John's inbox was flooded with personal stories of connection through imperfect, heartfelt language. The essay had a particularly powerful impact on the Filipino diaspora. Filipinos living in the United States, Canada, and the Middle East shared the story with pride. For so long, many had felt a sense of language shame, sometimes mocked for their accents or their unique turns of phrase. John's essay celebrated what made their English special. It reframed their language not as a deficiency, but as a gift, a version of English that was uniquely equipped to express warmth, hospitality, and community. He became an unlikely hero, an American teacher who saw the beauty they had always known was there. John, the quiet widower from North Carolina, found himself at the center of a global conversation. He was invited to speak at online educational conferences and participate in podcasts. He always gently turned down the requests for fame, preferring to answer emails personally. He had not written the essay for attention. He had written it to say thank you. His story showed that one person's authentic experience, shared with an open heart, can create ripples of change across the world. He had found his voice again, not by sticking to the rules, but by breaking free of them and speaking directly from the heart. In the end, John Miller's journey was not just about discovering a different kind of English. It was about rediscovering the fundamental purpose of language itself. We are social creatures, wired for connection. Language is the primary tool we have to build bridges to one another, to share our joys, to comfort our sorrows, and to say, I see you. But somewhere along the way, we can get lost in the mechanics. We can become so focused on the rules of engagement that we forget the purpose of the engagement in the first place: to connect, human to human. John's story is a powerful reminder that there are many ways to speak English, and none of them are more valid than another. The rich, melodic English of a Jamaican, the precise, formal English of an Indian academic, the rhythmic, vibrant English of a Nigerian, and the warm, inclusive English of a Filipino, they are all part of the glorious, evolving tapestry of a truly global language. To judge these Englishes against a single, rigid standard is to miss the beauty of their diversity. It is to close our ears to the vast spectrum of human experience they represent. Let's start celebrating these differences, not correcting them. The great lesson from John's journey is to listen with our hearts, not just our ears. When we listen for intention, for the kindness behind the words, for the shared humanity in a conversation, the grammar and the accent fade into the background. What remains is the connection. This is a lesson that applies not just to language learners, but to all of us, in every conversation we have. Are we truly listening to our partners, our children, our colleagues? Or are we just waiting for our turn to speak, to correct, to impose our own view? Let John Miller's story be an invitation to be more patient, more curious, and more compassionate in our communication. Let's value the courage of those who speak a language not their own. Let's embrace the beauty of imperfect, heartfelt conversation, because at the end of the day, the kindest words in any language are the ones that make another person feel heard, valued, and understood. That is a language we are all capable of speaking. It is the language of the heart, and it is the one that has the power to change the world, one conversation at a time.